So our first question in this little interview segment is, why are you running for North Carolina Senate District 3?
Well, I want to continue my lifelong legacy of service. I'm an East Carolina native, a Craven County native, and went to West Point, served 28 years in the active Army, and then came back home to continue to serve. And now I want to fight for you in Raleigh. I have the skills from West Point and from as an Inspector General that I can use for honesty, integrity, transparency, that I want to put to work for you. And I will work hard. I'm one of the hardest workers around here, and get things done for you.
Yeah, you briefly touched about your career. I want to get a little deeper into that. When we talk about where you've been and what you've done, what you've accomplished, specifically, why do you think that this is an asset as you head for a position in Raleigh?
Well, particularly, is problem solving. I can identify a problem, identify a conservative solution to that problem, and then implement its solution. My time as an Inspector General, like I said, is honesty, integrity, and transparency. During that time, I also inspected for intelligence oversight, which is keeping the military from spying on our citizens, our own citizens, as well as you're the conscience and the eyes and ears of the commander. And so that's where I can know about conflicts of interest. I know about issues that will arise, efficiency, transparency, and solving problems in the policy arena. That's all those skills that I've had for the last 28 years plus my time at West Point.
Yeah, you don't get those achievements and successes without, knowing these things and being the type of guy that you are. And we talked earlier about, don't mistake my kindness for weakness, because you are such a kind person. Anybody that meets this guy, immediately you like him.
Yeah, I didn't make it through West Point or 28 years in the Army, company command, or battalion command by being soft, but you can be kind.
And you are. When we talk about District 3 with that North Carolina Senate race, most people don't know what districts they're in or what that is. Can you explain that?
Yes, and here in North Carolina, we seem to change it all the time with the redistricting, but the current District 3 is Beaufort County, Lenoir County, and Craven County.
Perfect. With your leadership roles in your life, what is it about you that makes you so respected and admired?
Well, I think it's that I don't assume that I know everything. I go in and try to get different perspectives, educate myself on what it is. Now, I have principles. I have things that I won't compromise. I'm a constitutional conservative and have conservative values, so there's a place to start. But I actually gather all the information that I can from all the people that I can, and then make an informed decision and be able to defend my decision. And so when you give people a chance to give you their opinion, even if you don't agree with them later, they've at least had their chance and their say, and trying to convince you otherwise. And so I think it's that's openness, not just, particularly within the Republican Party. We're all opinionated. We all have an opinion, and they all matter. But at the end of the day, you've got to gather all those opinions together and make a decision.
Yeah. What do you hope, or what do you want the voters to get out of your platform?
Out of my platform, basically that, number one, I'm a Christian follower of Jesus Christ. I am a constitutional conservative, so I believe in the text of the Constitution. For example, one of the legislators I admire, he said, we're coming out of Christmas. His example is always the carol that says, now we don our gay apparel. That has a very different meaning today than it had back then. And so I am a textualist, and we need to adhere to what the Constitution says, because there are ways to change the Constitution. They're called amendments, and you don't change it by judicial decree.
Let's talk about your big three. So if anybody goes to his website and you read all the stuff that's in there, one of those things is expanding school choice. What do you mean by that?
Well, at first, because of COVID, parents figured out what was going on in our schools, what they were actually teaching. And so we talked about school choice. That's the money follows the student to either a charter school or a homeschool, and giving the public schools some competition. And the legislature recently passed a Parents' Bill of Rights, putting and telling the schools that, hey, what's going on with the child, both mental health, physical health, and grades, needs to be passed on to the parents, who's ultimately responsible for raising that child. But there are boards of education now that are refusing to implement that Parent Bill of Rights. And so by expanding school choice, you give those parents the authority or even the ability to move their student to somewhere that's a little more aligned with their values. And then the other thing is it gives public schools competition, because competition is good. If we raise the level of our students' reading ability, math ability, science ability, that benefits everyone, not just the students around you.
Great. And you have children, so
I have children, yeah.
You can certainly speak on those points very well.
Right.
Even though they're out of school now. So it's not like it's your fight today.
Right. But it's a legacy for, my future grandchildren.
Absolutely. So secondly, you speak about taking back freedoms and liberties. Kind of expand on that a bit.
Well, one of the big issues is this cancel culture that we have. We need to be able to put freedom of speech back into our colleges, and be able to have conservative voices without being canceled. And you see that now, and I think you see the hypocrisy with the Hamas versus Israel protests that you're seeing in the schools. And we need to enforce or help the thoughts exchange in college and be able to have discussions, conservative and liberal. The other thing, Second Amendment rights, we need to defend those. We need to respect those. Red flag laws are something I'm against, because it doesn't give the person due process. That's one of our fundamental rights that we give criminals, but we're going to pass red flag laws and we're not going to give it to gun owners. That doesn't make any sense. And we just, all along, the Democrats have taken our rights, 1 inch, 1 foot, 1 yard at a time, almost like trench warfare. Well, that's how we get them back. We've got to take them back 1 inch, 1 foot, 1 yard at a time where we can, and go on the offensive, because we have supermajorities now, and we're hoping to have supermajorities in 2024 election. And so we take the wins where we can, and we fight back for our rights and our liberties where we can.
Very good. Lastly, in the top three, safety and security for our citizens. So we talked about this. Are your neighbors fearful? Are you fearful? Am I fearful? How can we do this?
Well, here's where we talk about the southern border. In talking to our law enforcement officers, there is a problem not just with illegal migrants coming across, but also fentanyl and drugs coming across. That is making every state a border state. And we have those problems here. You now have unintentional overdoses on all of these drugs that people are taking because they're laced with fentanyl. And then those proceeds from all of those drugs are going back to the cartels or going back to our enemies abroad. And so it really is safety and security like you wouldn't understand it normally. All of this crime that's coming in because, again, of drugs. We need to give our law enforcement officers the tools and the ability to go after these folks. And we need to have our first responders trained and have the tools that they need to save the lives of people that are getting caught in the middle of all of this. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about safety and security today.
Perfect. When you run for office, the whole family's involved to some degree. How do you see your wife playing a supportive role for you next year?
Absolutely.
This year, actually.
My wife is actually very supportive of my run. She knows that I am built for service, and that's something that I have wanted to do and be involved in politics my entire life. And so when I talked to her about this opportunity, she said, go for it. Not everybody has the ability to follow their dreams at times. And I'll tell you too, she's also my biggest supporter, but also, a bit of a encourager too in an Army way. She's a West Point graduate. She's a 26-year Army veteran. Actually outranked me, passed me when we went there through the Army, and incredibly successful. I mean, we're a dual military career officers that we had 3 successful kids. They all came home for this past Christmas. They still love us. And but she'll be the first to tell me, hey, you need to get off your butt and go do this or go do that. And she's really my sounding board for many of the things that I do, and as a spouse should be. And very encouraging and very supportive of me.
What concerns in local and state government are you most passionate about, and why?
Well, I tell you, it goes back to, now that I'm a New Bern alderman, I see the needs for infrastructure. Particularly if you think about New Bern, probably in Little Washington, probably in Kinston, these older towns now, their sewer and water infrastructures are starting to fall apart. And so they're needing to be replaced. And that's not just an Eastern North Carolina thing. That's municipalities all over and counties all over. And sometimes those cities and those municipalities can't afford to replace those. And so thankfully that's kind of where the state gets involved and gives grants. New Bern has gotten grants to replace some of its infrastructure as well as some of its stormwater, recovering from Florence. And so without that help, we would be a lot farther back than we actually are in progress and in rebuilding our flood damaged areas. And so that's really something I'd like to take a look at if I get to Raleigh, is helping out our municipalities for things that are basic needs, water, sewer, and stormwater drainage. So that's something I've learned about, I'm passionate about now, because it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I was going to ask that, now that you've been serving as an alderman, are there things that you've learned that surprised you being in there serving?
One of the things that surprised me is how difficult it is to be put on the spot to keep taxes low, even when the needs are becoming greater. And so we were able to do that this last cycle. We didn't raise taxes. And so that worked out well, but we had to dip into fund balance to increase the salaries of our employees because we were afraid of losing them because their salaries were well below market. And so it's the creativity that you've got to come to figure out a solution and not put such a burden on the taxpayers. You've got to use their tax money wisely, and you've got to figure it out. And so I guess that was, and having the courage, I think that's the important thing, having the courage to make the decision and work out a good solution for everybody and not raise taxes, but
Nice.
still continue the services that people expect.
Well, I'll thank you for that one. Last thought for the voters.
Well, again, I am a Christian conservative, constitutional conservative. I'll fight for your values just like I've fought for the country for the last 28 years. I'm an absolutely hard worker. When I came back to Craven County, I got involved in many volunteer organizations, veterans organizations, even the local Republican Party, and got elevated to leadership positions because I had the leadership skills that are there, and they know I'm an incredibly hard worker. I had one of the members of the Republican Party told me, said, "Bob, I'm voting for you because every time something comes up that they need somebody to do something, your name comes up, they call you, and you show up and you do the job." And so that to me was kind of the biggest compliment I could have. And that goes to show you what I can do for you in Raleigh.
You got my vote. What is the best way to keep up with you and what you're doing?
Well, the best way, I have a website, votebobbrinson.com. There is also a sign up for a newsletter there. I intend to keep that pretty updated and sending out information of what I'm doing. And we're also working on Facebook right now. Go to my personal page, Bob Brinson, and I'll be posting there things that I'm doing.
Well, thank you. Thanks for letting us be a part of this. Good luck, and go check this guy out. Go to those places, ask him questions. He will answer them.